the effects of force. We will go through one by one. The force can make a stationary body in motion. For example, a football can be set to move by kicking it, that is by applying a force. Initially the football is at rest. If I will apply some force, then there will be a movement in the football, so that initially the object is at rest. By application of force, that one will be in motion. This one is the first effect of force. Then the next one, force can stop a moving body. That means if the ball is moving and the fielder want to stop that ball, then he will apply the force in the opposite direction. Otherwise, you are riding your bicycle and you want to stop at a certain destination. You have to apply the brake so that the bicycle will come to rest. In that case, the force can stop a moving body. Then the next one, force can change the direction of a moving object. That means, I told you now, whenever the bowler will throw a ball in a cricket match, the bowler will throw a ball and the batsman can hit it in any direction. In that case, the ball is going in a certain direction. When the batsman will hit it, it will change its direction. That means due to that force, there will be a certain change in the direction of the motion. Then the next one, force can change the speed of the moving body. As if the object is moving at a certain direction and the force is applied in that same direction. Take the example, a ball is moving and you will apply the force in that same direction. So what you will notice? You will notice that the speed of the ball will increase, the velocity of the ball will increase, or it will start to accelerate due to application of force. Then the next one, force can change the shape and size of the object. By hammering a block of metal, it can be turned to a thin sheet. By hammering a stone, it can break into small pieces. Yes or no? Whenever you will start to apply some force, due to that force, there will be a change in the shape and size of the object. So remember this one, all these are the effects of force. You can see that first one, force can make a stationary body in motion. Force can stop a moving body. Force can change the direction of a moving body. Force can change the speed of moving body. Force can change the shape and size of the moving body. All these are the effects of force. So from this we can also say the definition of the force. We can also define the force as something which can move a stationary object, can make moving object stationary, or change speed, direction, shape or size of moving body. From the effects of the force, we can define the force also. Then the next thing, basically there are two types of force are there. One is balanced force, another one is unbalanced force. So what is balanced force? If the resultant force of all the forces acting on a body is zero, then the forces are called balanced force. So when two forces of equal magnitude but acting in opposite direction in a same object, I will call it as balanced force. You just see the diagram here. In the diagram, it is given that the tug of war game in which both teams exert equal force. You can see that in this case both teams will apply equal amount of force but in the opposite direction. So a tug of war game in which both teams exert equal force is an example of balanced force. A stationary object is an example of balanced force. So this one is also an example of balanced force. So I will explain this one first, then after I will explain about this one. This one is the example of balanced force. A stationary object means a book is there lying on the table. This one is also an example of balanced force. So the first one, the tug of war game, you can see that in a tug of war game, two teams pull the rope from opposite direction. If both teams apply equal strength, the rope does not move. It is quite clear to all. This is because the force of two teams is balanced. That means one team exerts force from left to right, and another team will apply the force from right to left, so that as they have equal magnitude but the direction is just opposite to each other, so that there will be no movement in the rope. Okay, then the next one, when the object is stationary, that one is also an example of balanced force. So in this case I can say that when a box is kept on a table, it does not move by itself and it is stationary. It will not move by itself. We have to apply some external force so that there will be a certain movement on the box in this case. So that it is because force of gravity is exerted on the box from top to bottom. Yes, one force will act in the downward direction. That one is gravitational force due to the weight of the object, and another force will act in the upward direction. Means one force will act in the upward direction. That one is the reaction force of that gravitational force which is there in the downward direction. So also the force of reaction is exerted by the table from bottom to top. So these both forces balance each other, due to which box does not move. So that a stationary object, that means this box is stationary. Why? Now because one force will act in the downward direction and another force will act in the upward direction. The downward direction is gravitational force, and the force which is acting in the upward direction, that one is due to the reaction force, because this object is placed over a table. Okay, so the next part is that what are the effects of balanced force? If a number of balanced force acts on a stationary body, the body continues to be at rest. Why? Now because the resultant force is zero. That means the force will act equal in magnitude but opposite in direction. If a number of balanced forces act on a body in uniform motion, the body continues to be in the state of uniform motion. That means if you will apply some balanced force, and due to that force the object is moving, it will continue to move in a uniform motion. I hope it is clear to all. Then we will go to the next part. This one is unbalanced force. So if the resultant of applied forces are greater than zero, the force are called unbalanced force. An object is in rest can be moved because of the applying unbalanced force. So we can take one example. Force required to move the stationary object. I told you when the object is stationary on a table, at that time that one is the example of balanced force. But whenever we will apply some force so that the object will start to move from stationary to motion, at that time that one is an example of unbalanced force. Suppose there is a heavy box is kept on a ground, we will try to push it with our hand. A heavy box is there in the table, we have to push that with our hand. So in this case, if we push it with less force, it does not move. Okay, why? As our muscular force exerted by body is balanced by force of friction. Okay, if you will push a wall, it will move, it will not move. Why? Now because in that case that our muscular force will not overcome the means that initial force or the frictional force. So however, if we push it with more force, then the frictional force it moves, because the force now it is unbalanced, as the muscular force exerted by our body is much more than the opposing force of friction. Once the muscular force overcomes the frictional force, that time there will be a motion of the object. Okay, so this one is the example of unbalanced force. You can see that here we have differentiate what is balanced force, what is unbalanced force. This one is the definition for both the cases, this one is the example. Then the next one, the force present in the object moving with a constant velocity, the force required to stop moving object, this one is unbalanced. Then example, tug of war when one team will win, this one is the means equilibrium case, when both the team will apply equal amount of force, then this force cannot move stationary object. I have already told you this force can move the stationary object, and this one is unbalanced. So this one is the differentiation between the balanced and unbalanced force.